Joining up the Megaliths, presented by Andy Burnham. Andy explains the use of modern technology in megalithic studies and showed obscure sacred sites worldwide from contributors from his Megalithic Portal website. Recorded live at Megalithomania Conference 2006.
Thanks very much. As you said, I'm Andy Burnham. I'll just get my notes out. I'm terrified of dropping these, so I've got them in a folder. Now I'm going to take them out. I have to be very careful with them. So I'm going to talk about the use of modern technology in the study of megaliths. And in particular, I'll be focusing on how the massive website founded by myself called the Megalithic Portal has made it possible for megalithomaniacs, or I prefer the word megaracs myself, which is lost in the history of the 1990s, how megalithomaniacs can manage to find each other and share information about obscure stones worldwide. Now, it would be quite easy to bore you senseless with this subject, so rather than dwell on the hows, whys and wherefores of running a website, what I'm going to do is give you a whistle-stop tour of what we have to offer the world. Anyone interested in details of the technical side is welcome to contact me afterwards. I'm here for all of the 2 days. We have a stand downstairs with books and CDs and a computer to demonstrate things. The website's also available, I believe, in the cafe area, along with other web access. Oh, it's that one, isn't it? He told me about that, so he warned me about that. Anyway, on to slide 2. I expect most speakers will be illustrating their talks with their own photos. So I do take my own photos, but what I thought it would be more fun to do today would be to do something a bit different. As was said, the Megalithic Portal has many hundreds, indeed thousands of contributors who've taken the time to submit their photos and thoughts on megaliths and a wide variety of related subjects. So having personal trust over this database of over 20,000 photos, it's clear they should form a major part of the talk. So the unique thing about the presentation you're going to see that I've put together specifically for today is that every single photo has come from a different contributor. I've tried to pick some of the most expressive photos from the wide range of subjects that we cover. So we're going to stray a little bit away from megaliths as we go. I've tried to choose some subjects that are a little out of the ordinary megalithic fare as well. Right, having got the hang of the changes. Photos and other contributions come in all the time at the portal, and each one is checked by a human editor, or site admin as we call them. We have a team of about 10 volunteers working behind the scenes, processing the information that comes in. I've a couple of them here today, we have internal editorial policies that we have great fun arguing about, debating about all the time. It's great fun. Most of us are English, but we also have a couple of Germans who are helping with our coverage of continental Europe. So as you can imagine, it gets rather hectic dealing with such a live system. Actually, I've just noticed, is it possible to move it up a fraction so we can see the captions at the bottom? Because that, as I say, it can be quite hectic dealing with such a live system. And outside my family and work life, it gets pretty all-encompassing, I have to say, with the rest of my time. I don't often get a chance to step back and look through some of the photos, so it's been a real pleasure to do this. And having selected the photos, I'm trying to weave them together into a cohesive talk, so bear with me as we jump around a bit. Now this was the point. To speed things up a bit, what I've done is put credit for each photo on the screen there, so I don't have to go through each one. So I'm very appreciative to the people who've allowed me to use their photos. And as I say, I hope that's big enough to read, and you'll get the details of what you're seeing there as we go. As you know, I mean, virtually every advert or indeed snooker player seem to have their own web address plastered on them. So most of the early websites were quite basic, and people like myself would see them and think, well, I could do that. So I'm sure many of you know that taking photos of megaliths is a popular hobby, which I'm sure a lot of you do, and have a collection, perhaps gathering dust in a shoebox, which is a bit of a waste. So quite a lot of people like myself had the same idea to create their own website with text and photos scanned into digital form with a cheap desktop scanner that was becoming available. So there were various ways of creating your own website, but whatever way you do it, it can be a time-consuming business. And in the later half of the 1990s, you had to do it the long way. So how did I get into this? Well, going back a few years from the start of the internet, I'd found the Lay Hunter, as had many of you, and later on Third Stone magazine. Now, magazines are fantastic for in-depth articles and for reading on the train and so on, but my interest was often caught by the smaller snippets of information about a specific megalith or other ancient site, perhaps a holy well or some unusual other ancient place. Now, in the Lay Hunter, you'd get a couple of paragraphs and a dodgy black and white photograph if you were lucky. And I would tend to think, well, where is that site? Wouldn't it be good to visit it one day? And what's nearby? If you were very lucky, the author would give a grid reference, but in those days, if it wasn't in your locality, you probably wouldn't have a map of the area, so you could be a bit stuck. The same goes for gazetteers of sites from books like Aubrey Burl's Stone Circle book. For the lesser-known stone circles, if you get a sentence of information again, and it's not due to any fault of Dr. Burl, it's just the limitation of the book format. So, without labouring this too much, perhaps the obvious point I'm trying to make is that on the web there's no limit to the amount of text or images you can add, indeed large ones in colour if it takes your fancy. The only limit is in the person creating the information. Or perhaps these days, the limit is in the boredom threshold of the website visitor, because it seems true to say that some websites have little concept of an editorial process, with contributors not really knowing when to call it a day and rambling rather a lot, which I hope I'm not doing at the moment. So enough sociology, and just briefly back to the technology. A character calling himself Alligator Descartes has to be credited for creating the first online database of megalithic sites. You might know him better as Alistair Carty, and he runs the laser scanning business called Archaeoptics, who scan everything from statues and individual megaliths to entire buildings. And I had a look on their website recently, and they actually managed to scan the entire of Knowlton Rings Henge in the south of England, with the church in the middle and the entire henges. So do go to archaeoptics.com and have a look at that. So back in 1996, he created a small listing of stones as part of his website called Hermetica. Now, on the surface, the pages looked much the same as the handcrafted websites that everyone else was doing, but there was a big difference. With all the information came out of a computer database. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a screenshot of that. It's not that exciting anyway, but the site has long since closed down. I managed to collect an archive of the data, and sometimes a job I want to do is to actually recreate this original website, which it sounds like quite a bizarre thing to do, perhaps, but essentially, as I say, it doesn't exist now, so it's almost like archaeology of the internet to recreate this thing. It could be a historic site, even, to use a bad pun. So in a database-driven website, rather than have each page created by human hand, the pages don't actually exist until someone comes along and asks to view them. At this point, the computer at the far end, or otherwise known as the server, goes off and generates the page for you to view, and it fills in the text and the photos in the appropriate slots based on a template that you've previously tells it where you want things to go. So in parallel to what Alligator was doing, I'd been compiling lists of ancient sites just on a database on my own computer, creating an early A to Z index and listings by county and by country. This was the reason for doing that is it was in the early days before the Google and when search engines really didn't work very well. So if you wanted to find things on the internet, it wasn't really very easy. So I went through and catalogued a lot of this stuff and created guide pages. So after that, up popped the idea in all this that more than one person could contribute information. So someone else to credit in the early days is Toby Hall, otherwise known as Riot Gibbon, who is related to the festival movement, as Andy was talking about, and set up the Gilfin website This was an electronic version of an underground print publication, and it carries festival and other what's on information. It was started in Guildford and spread out to the rest of the south of England. The website was quite revolutionary in that ordinary site visitors could log on and add their own information. So at the same time, I was getting a lot of emails from people who'd found my own handcrafted website, and I was expanding to accept photos from other places that I hadn't visited, still adding things by hand, and this was getting very time-consuming. So by now we're in the year 2000, and another couple of pieces of modern technology are coming into play, namely the digital camera, of course, and the personal GPS receiver. Now, I know it's a bit early, but I won't label what these are for, but of course they allow you to take instant photos that can be made available in electronic form, and a GPS obviously allows you to get an accurate location fix to help you find things and get grid references. So put all those pieces together, and the natural progression is to create a website that can be added to by web visitors. So hence the Megalithic Portal was born, and that's it. So to create it initially, I looked for a website system that did close to what I wanted, and I've tweaked it over the years to improve the photo gallery or upgrade the maps. Through the use of free software or open source and the Linux operating system and things like that, the whole system has been built up for very little money, other than the upkeep of a PC as a web server and a high bandwidth connection to the internet. So at the moment it's costing around about £120 a month to run, in various expenses for all sorts of things, and we get most of that back from sales and donations. But it's viable for an individual to do. We're not a big organisation, and we try and keep the costs down. So the downside of the organic growth is that the system has some deficiencies. I sort of jokingly compare it to Doctor Who's TARDIS because it's a bit temperamental. I don't, to be honest, understand all the inner workings all the time, but it is much loved nonetheless, and there's a lot going on beneath the surface that visitors sometimes don't see. So over the years, people have offered me lists of sites or gazetteers containing information on related types of ancient sites. And me being me, I never like to turn one down. So the Megalithic Portal has rather grown organically to cover other types of megalithic site, and then other types of prehistoric site, and then timber circles, prehistoric settlements, more recently holy wells, ancient crosses. I'll come on to some of the more varied things in a bit. But on the slide here you can see a map generated by the portal, which you can get off the website, and it shows different types of just megalithic tombs across Europe. And in the legend there shows that you can scroll down and it shows the different types of tombs. So another unique feature that I like is that the red dots indicate where we've got a photo of the particular site, and the green dots indicate there's not yet a photo. So the game we play is to try and obviously turn the green dots to red, and you can see that in the UK, and particularly Ireland for megalithic tombs, which is surprising, we've got a good lot of red, and the aim is to fill in photos and document as many of these sites as we possibly can. So to create the maps of French and German megaliths, this has been done over the last couple of years, basically from scratch, because while the UK sites, there was a lot of information already on the web, and I got permission from Aubrey Burl to use his stone circle data and various other things like that. For France and Spain, there really aren't databases that you can crib from quite so easily. So what my friends at the portal have been doing is basically getting French maps and going through them and actually working out locations on the maps and plotting them in and entering them in and creating this new database of sites. And then having done that, we sort of stick up a fairly blank page saying, well, this is just what the site, where it is. And we sit and cross our fingers, and information comes in, and amazingly it does. So we're starting to get real French people come onto the site and comment, and then we're having discussions about how we can be bilingual and such like. And it's obviously being in English is not ideal, so there's all sorts of new developments there. But essentially we exist to raise awareness of megalithic and other prehistoric sites, and outside the UK the awareness is a lot less. But they really are everywhere, which is probably quite well known around here, but in many cases they're unloved, and they can be under threat of development or damage. And not all are scheduled ancient monuments either, and not all countries respect their past the way that perhaps we do in the UK. So just to zoom in on the map, I've done one centred on Glastonbury essentially, and you can see some of the diverse types of information here. We've got holy wells, we've got caves with a Paleolithic activity in them. Basically, we've tried to create little icons that indicate what the different things are. And obviously in other parts of the country we have Pictish symbol stones in Scotland and Brox, and a lot of ancient crosses. I don't think there's one on there, but that's obviously has a cross symbol. You can see in the top right there's some grey sites which are also indicate where there are used to be a location of a site that's no longer there, so we also show those. And rather masochistically, I rather like taking photos of these sites where there's just an empty field, which is perhaps my particular strangeness. But I'm quite happy to have photos of empty fields if there was a compelling story behind them. So that was the technical bit. What I'm going to do now is have a quick look at some of the sites that we cover and go on to look at a few of the varied activities and interests of the people who contribute to the Megalithic Portal. So I'm going to start talking about the photos now. I mean, the ones you've seen are fairly well-known sites. So there's some more obscure things coming up now. So what is that? That's something that came through a couple of years ago. It's in Wales. I forget exactly where in Wales, but it looks a bit suspicious. It sort of looks plonked there, so we don't think it's ancient. We think it's a farmer having a laugh with his JCB and to amuse the cows. So we really don't know. It's the sort of thing that we put up and we ask for comment, and we've got a specific category for modern stone circles. And we also we like to document recent stones that people have built as well, because there's quite a number of them up and down the country. Another area, another type of site, of course, is rock art. This is from Ilkley Moor. It's Hanging Stones Quarry, which the whole area was nearly destroyed in Victorian times, and you can see some very intricate rock art patterning there. So I mentioned briefly the Pictish symbol stones in Scotland. This is a Class 1 stone. It's sandstone and stands on the roadside to the north of the church nearby, of Aberlemno. The design shows a snake and a double disc and this Z type of feature in the centre. And this is Angie Lake's favourite Pictish symbol stone. She wrote, so she was going to be here because she was our competition winner. But couldn't be with us, unfortunately. So she actually won some tickets to come here today through the website. We quite often run photo competitions and such like, where we go through the, again, rather masochistic tendency of getting visitors to vote for the photos themselves. And everybody says, people are rigging it, but I assure you there is this vote. There's judging going on in the background, and we find them out most of the time, all of the time. So that was our competition winner. This is going to Orkney, far north of Scotland, a grain earth house known as souterrains in Cornwall. It's a nice flash photo of the rather dank and strange interior. Again, no one really knows what these were made for. I mean, there could be grain stores, but it's very damp for grain. So I'm going to go across to continental Europe for a bit. This is Chabous-Trois-Men here in Mount Lozère in France, by this chap called Mad Cat, who is a real French person again. He says, I'm greatly pleased to see coming along. Alignment of 3 stones, obviously. And we don't really know very much about that, as again, in the UK, we don't know a lot about many of them. So stone circles, well, they're not confined to the UK as you might think. There's 14 in this particular valley in the Pyrenees in France. Now this chap, Nick, reckons he's found 6 or 7, but has documented where 14 different ones are. Here we are, yeah, this is an Iron Age burial site. It's actually a stone circle, but it's not a stone circle in the conventional sense. It's an Iron Age burial site. And again, I've not been able to find very much information about this. There's not even a sign. This is in Sweden. Walking around, you'd find these stones and other things indicating more graves from the Iron Age. And the mound is probably a long barrow. And over to Spain, or down to Spain, we've got contributions from this guy called Ernar, who's been feeding us grid references of, longitudes and latitudes are most useful because they go into the plotting the big map that you saw on a few slides ago. So the passage grave close to the village of Arabolde in the Carpeiris Hills. And try and get these back in order. So this is a fantastic photo. Germany discovered a timber circle in the early 1990s that was believed to be a temple of the sun built 6,800 years ago. There was a circle of posts in a river valley in Goseck, which is south of Berlin. And essentially they've reconstructed it as a visitor centre. And my friend Klingon, whose real name is Jan, who's one of our admins from Germany, he heard about this on the TV, amazingly enough, so that they seem to get good publicity for their ancient sites in Germany, at least for this one, that there was going to be an opening. And back winter solstice time, just this last year, they had a firework display and a grand opening with this sort of nighttime event. So that's a new thing which we've obviously got on the map, and a lot of things appearing in Germany. So coming back to the UK and coming back to the rest of my notes, the Isle of Wight. There's not really many stones on the Isle of Wight, but there's hundreds and hundreds of round barrows, and you sometimes wonder if you can have too much of a good thing, but there really are an enormous number. So particularly interesting ones there's 5 or 6 in this spectacular setting overlooking the Solent, and just you can see 2 particular barrows there. That's a Mottistone Down. And stones in Norfolk, well, yes, of a sort. This is a glacial erratic. It's an enormous great thing. Just undoubtedly the largest it's made of Necomium sandstone. It's quite possibly transported from Scandinavia by glacial action. And there's a folk tale reported that the tale recounts that if this enormous stone was to be removed, the waters would rise up to flood and cover the whole earth, which I suppose is a kind of plug-hole effect, which is quite good as folklore goes. There's warnings in here about it being near to MOD land, so take care for that. It weighs in at 20 to 25 tons and is 13 by 5 by 5 feet. And again, we add things like natural stones in many cases because they have folklore attached, and the ancient people were probably revering them in many cases. So this is over to exciting Northampton, where there is Hunsbury Hill Fort, which can be seen in a country park. You can get a bit of noise from the M1, unfortunately, but it's there. So wherever you live in the country, there is prehistory to be seen and to find as well, because in many parts, particularly as where I come from in Surrey, a lot of it's been obliterated. So part of the fun is in tracking it down. So this is a fascinating one, a sort of landed UFO type effect. So this is technically classed as destroyed, this barrow, but it was excavated in the early 1990s, and the round barrow was totally rebuilt, including the surrounding ditch, which you can see is quite deep there. So it's quite interesting in that you can see how a round barrow might have looked originally before having all the infill that's happened over the thousands of years. And down to Scilly Isles, we have a stone row of 3 stones in Highertown Bay, St Martin's on the Isle of Scilly. This is obviously on the beach and gets partly covered at low tide. Now, only 3 stones remain, but Brian Bing, who is an expert on Dartmoor, he explains that the landscape around Scilly was very similar to Dartmoor thousands of years ago, with these sort of hillock-type things and plains, which have obviously been now covered by sea. So you can find a lot of stone rows quite similar to Dartmoor in the Scillies. So there's a lot to explore down there. So as just one photo of course, the Free Festival, just so I can claim we've got some as well. This is from 1982. Oh, mine's colour. Look, how exciting. And of course, you can see the fences, no one was too worried. And going back even further, this is from 1958. It's some photos I tracked down that I really don't know anything about. They're just some photos that I chanced upon. There's some more of Stonehenge, and you can see in the background that it's being restored. Now, I'm sure Andy Worthington will be able to tell me exactly what was going on there. But it says there's a sign saying, "Danger, radioactive area, do not proceed beyond this point." Now, why was it radioactive? I don't know. Perhaps someone today will tell me. So, this is the part of what do we get up to these days. So, moving forward to this motley crew here, including another of our admins on the right is Tim Previtt, who's here today. I don't know whether he's brought his companion called Corvus. He may well have done so. Watch out. And he leads Equinox Ancient tours, taking people to different parts of the UK. So this was a 15-mile walk out to Bryn Caderfanna, which I probably pronounced wrong because I'm not Welsh. So it's a fantastic location through a very boggy walk. But there's this unique site with the crown of stones, crown of thorns type effect on the top. So it's very much worth a sort of pilgrimage to almost. And other things that we get up to. Well, another of our enthusiastic members got so fed up with his job that he basically gave it up and went off and bought a camper van and spent the next 9 months travelling around France. He was the chap who I told you about who was going through the maps, finding the stones and entering them into the database. Well, he basically followed that up and with a GPS receiver and a camera, and he was getting GPS fixes and as much information as he could find locally. As I say, he did that for 9 months, visiting dozens of sites each day and having a wonderful time. That was about a year ago, and he's got about the next 3 years to enter all this information onto the website and try and process it. And he may well write a book as well. But that's Martin, otherwise known as the Captain. There's an incredible stamina. So other things that members get up to, they create reconstructions. This is a company called Virtual History. The original photo of Heaven's Gate in the Wrekin hill fort, and he's reconstructed it to show what it might have looked like when the Cornovi were passing through it. And other things, discovering new rock art. This photo was taken just seconds after the discovery of this stone under vegetation, and judging by the lack of erosion you can see there, we think it may not have seen the light of day since it was covered up many thousands of years ago. And the chap writes that the first port of call for posting this was the Megalithic Portal. And they describe how they uncovered the stone, and it's not listed in any of the rock art gazetteers, so they do think it's a new one, and they've covered it since with turf to protect it. So, more interesting and obscure things is the United States has its own forms of megaliths that are very mysterious and somewhat disputed. This is a large cairn at Oley Hills in Berks County, Pennsylvania. There's a problem in getting these sites recognised as ancient, so they're not protected in any way, and they're extremely threatened from development. But there's good evidence to show they are built by Native Americans from hundreds to thousands of years, and probably over time. So, and one of the things we do, is, as well as campaigning for the better known campaigns in Ireland and the UK is to things like protection for ancient sites in America and such like. So that's the only photo I've got from the USA. Going over to Malta, you may have heard of the Clapham Junction cart ruts, are probably the best known, but these are from St George's Bay in Malta, taken by John, and you can see that they're leading into the sea, and the sea level is actually coming right up there. So you could argue possibly there's someone's calculated that these must be 10,000 years old to tie in with the sea level. I don't know. I'm interested to have more information. It's near a historical cave called Gare de l'Arme, which is fairly well known in ancient terms. So mysterious cart ruts in Malta. Other things we do is develop new theories about things. Jack Morris-Eaton, who's also here today, has developed over many years a theory relating to stone circles, relating specifically to shadows and the solstices. Now, I won't attempt to describe this here because I'm obviously don't have the time. But Jack is around, and hopefully he can have his own talk at some point to describe more of his theories. But we have a fantastic photo from Jack anyway of shadows near Castlereagh. Black and white photography. This is with a red filter of Stonehenge, quite amazing. And then I think this one is infrared, Ring of Brodgar, Orkney. There's quite a few photo enthusiasts who congregate around the portal, and we get sort of good debates of traditional infrared photography versus digital cameras and such like, and it's all good fun really if you're a photo enthusiast. Someone else who's here today is J.J. Evenden, who you may be able to catch up with down at our stand later on if he has a light plane, and he's done an amazing job in going around doing aerial photographs for us. Now this is a site in France on an island, of course, and you can just see up the top there is a stone circle half in and half out of the sea. And in fact, you may just be able to see above that, there's a second circle forming a figure of 8 actually under the water. So JJ, of course, well, it's not very easy to visit without a boat, but with a plane it's very easy. Now, I know I said I was taking one photo per person, but I've bent the rules with JJ a little bit because these are so amazing. The story behind this one is, this is in someone's garden near Henley-on-Thames in Berkshire. And it's something we tracked down from the air, as we thought must be there from the documentation we knew about. And the story behind this is a megalithic tomb that came from Jersey, and it was donated. It was in 1785. It's the colonel of the St Hela militia was having a piece of land levelled for a parade ground. The men digging it came across this megalithic monument called the Mont de la Vie, and it was offered to the governor of Jersey, Marshal Conway, as a gift from the island that he'd served so well. And as you can imagine, he was a little bit reluctant to accept this gift because it included transporting it off the island. But they were insistent. They said, no, you take our gift, we will be offended or something, he probably thought. So this site from Jersey got re-erected in around the... as I say, I think it's about 1788. They came up a barge on the Thames and were re-erected in Thomas Conway's house outside Henley. Since then, it's really fallen into obscurity. I've got a zoom in there, obviously. Now, we have tried to contact the landowners to see if they will allow us to go and photograph, but they're quite elusive and haven't responded. But we have our plane, so I'm afraid you've been caught on camera, and there it is. And you can see also the rather interesting architect designed house there, so they're probably elusive billionaires or something. So that remains a bit of a mystery. Glastonbury tour. No, this is Croatia. This is 11th century St Nicholas church. The barrow itself hasn't been explored. This is another of our enthusiastic contributors, as travels quite a lot with his work, and he was going around Eastern Europe, and he actually employed some local archaeologists in Croatia to go and track down some of these sites for us. So mentioning briefly protection of ancient sites is a critical thing of what we do. There's a good argument of, we're advertising all these sites to people. They may find out about them, go and damage them. But I think we have to argue that making them known about means more people will visit them, and they can be protected just by knowing about them and publicising damage. So there's quite a lot of debate gone on about that. But I think we have to say we're doing the right thing. You can see there's rock art here that's being damaged by climbers that we've publicised, and we're trying to get a sign erected. Very briefly here, there's Seahenge 2, which is still up on the shores of the home bay. Is being washed away as we speak, probably. Those two logs are no longer there, but because of all the furore about Seahenge, this one probably is going to get washed away. But there it is, and we have the grid reference if anyone's interested. Obscure site from Indonesia. This is in the front there. There's a lying down megalith, which some people say is a buffalo, but we don't really know. It could be. Other people have said it's human, as anthropomorphic features, which it does really. So nobody really knows. Another mystery from Indonesia. Something else members do is build sites in their own gardens. Hands up, who's done this? Perhaps. You don't have to admit to it if you don't want to. And they also creating. This one is called "Waiter, this soup is stone cold." Thank you very much. Playing didgeridoos in West Kennet Long Barrow, as you do. You don't have to have long hair note to do that. Sitting on stones. This is another one from Germany. It's fairly characteristic of Germany and the Netherlands, of this type of site. A site in Luxembourg, which is a natural formation of stones, which has been used as a dolmen. So they found this thing. It looks a little bit like a dolmen, so they've put a burial in it, which must have been some lazy prehistoric people, and who can blame them? This is a Tunisia, another dolmen. So you see, there's this very similar all over Europe and North Africa. And Jordan, we had some contributions in from Jordan a while back. And the thing that strikes me is that this one is reminiscent of a very well-known Bible story of so it's quite an interesting photo, that, which brings me on to a few Christian sites that we include. Got ancient crosses that there's a natural progression between megaliths, and some which have been Christianized, some which have been turned used as crosses, and also, as continuity of religion. So we're documenting a lot of very ancient crosses as another thing I got a database of, which I couldn't resist using. Alton Prior's Church, connections with a continuity of religious use, again, sarsen underneath the church. This is quite near here in Wiltshire. Going back to pagan things, this is Cornwall, Holywell Bay. You can find a cave down there, which is one of the few unchristianized holy wells, where these amazing formations with from the well water passes through. I'm a bit short of time, so I'm going to skip some of these well photos, but you can see holy wells. This is a megalith underneath that is actually where the water comes from. We have sort of scope has crept into Saxon times. These are some Saxon barrows. I'm trying to resist the urge to cover the entire ancient world, but we've got a bit of that creeping in, particularly in places like Suffolk, where there's not much prehistory. And just rounding us off with some nice photos. Really, this is Devil's Arrows, taken at a perfect time of day with a perfect time of year when you can actually, in the crops alone, you can get to it. And just a beautifully well-composed photo. And a bit of a close-up. Mysterious flutings on them. Probably natural, but who knows? And the Bridestones in Cheshire. This chap, Kevin Kilburn, is a fellow of the Royal Astronomical Society and has been studying archaeoastronomy in the northwest of England. And Long Meg, you probably know, in Cumbria. You can just about, well, probably you can't, but there's a spiral carving on that face, which I don't think you can see on there, but it is, I think it's around about there. And another one of Long Meg, just a moonlight shot, which I rather like. Just leave that one for a minute. Moonlight. And there we are. Just end off with that one, of course. Needs no introduction or anything else. So thank you very much.
This has been a Megalithomania audio production. For more information, visit megalithomania.co.uk.